Hi, everybody. Welcome to an Infinite Danger Room podcast. I'm Matt Price. I'm here with Chris Borthick, and we're going to jump into the Wayback Machine a little bit today. We're going to go back to 1990 and look at a title that came out then and became kind of a big hit in the 90s and the early 90s. Ghost Rider. We're looking at Ghost Rider number 1 from 1990. What we had talked about, Chris, is that there was a line called Heroes of the 90s that Marvel put out around this time that featured Ghost Rider, New Warriors, Namor, the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, and I believe RoboCop. Now, most of those, except for maybe the RoboCop, went on to have pretty long and successful runs. It's a pretty fertile launch period for Marvel, with some stuff that was not necessarily A-list. Obviously, Spider-Man was, but some of the other characters were more B-list characters they were able to put a creative team around and kind of get launched into a successful run. Some of that's timing because the market was certainly shooting up in a great degree as far as sales at that time. But I think they also did a pretty good job of capturing the interest of the audience with some of the stuff they had coming out. So, as the motorcycle revs by us outside, we're going to talk about Ghost Rider number 1. This is written by Howard Mackie, who you might know from Amazing Spider-Man comics. The artists were Javier Saltares and Mark Texeira, both of whom I've had a chance to interview at different times over their work on this run and other things, and they both remembered it as being a pretty exciting and vibrant time to kind of be in the industry, and that this was something that really kind of made their careers as far as getting them out in front of a lot of people. So, Chris, why don't I let you've kind of just looked over the issue. You want to kind of start giving us kind of the breakdowns on what's happening, and then we'll kind of just go back and forth here as far as the issue recap for Ghost Rider 1.
Okay, well, so I should probably just start by saying that the Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze had kind of fallen off of the grid for a while, so this is a fresh start in that he's not around. It starts with our main character, Danny Ketch, and his sister going to Houdini's grave on Halloween night to videotape some psychic phenomenon, I guess is what she says in the book. They run afoul of a gang called the Cypress Pool Jokers, and further then run afoul and are witness to a execution of Kingpin's thugs by a villain called Deathwatch. So Barb is horrified and screams at the execution and is shot, and leaving Danny to try to get her to safety, even though she's got a gunshot wound and she's bleeding out.
And this all happens by like page 4.
Right.
I mean, this is not decompressed. No, that might be a 6-issue arc now.
Right, yeah, it'll take forever in modern Marvel. But not
just
now.
At this point, we're 4 pages in, and this is already, okay.
This is already going. So, of course, he hides in the nearby junkyard to the graveyard, which probably an interesting layout of the street. But, we'll forgive that one. And lo and behold, as he hides amongst all the cars, he finds this brand new motorcycle with a glowing gas cap, and he is surrounded by the villain's henchmen, Deathwatch's henchmen, trying to go and kill all the witnesses because they have seen Deathwatch's face, because he was so smart and took his mask off, widely killed people. So that's what you should do. But anyway, that little trope aside, it was interesting. He kind of just touches the gas cap, not knowing really what else to do, and is transformed into Ghost Rider, who then takes care of the villains and saves the sister.
Pretty interesting splash page of Ghost Rider coming out, and honestly, since Ghost Rider hadn't been seen since, well, I don't know if he guest starred anywhere, but 83 was when his book ended. So this is a compelling visual, which Ghost Rider has always been a great visual.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets people back into the character. They leave it kind of vague, like there's blood on his hands, the gas cap is glowing, he touches the gas cap. Is it the blood that causes this? Is it, what is it that causes this to happen? We're left sort of in a mystery. As I was telling you, it's much more of a Spider-Man or Nova type origin than what the original Johnny Blaze origin was. And although I think in later issues it becomes more convoluted to some degree, This is pretty clean, at least as far as getting you started, getting into it. There's a magic motorcycle. He touches it. Somehow it's turned him into the Ghost Rider.
Right, and this is the so this is kind of you can see the reader appeal because this is literally the everyman hero, right place, wrong time. Now you have superpowers. That's always a compelling origin story, I think, for new characters. He reveals himself to be pretty formidable right out of the gates. Dispatching the modern day ninjas of Death Watch, and reveals his power, which comes to be called the Penance Stare, though I don't think they name it just yet. He also is he's fairly talkative, I think, at points, for Ghost Rider anyway, and he's very much not interested in hurting innocent people. The cops show up to try to stop him, and he kind of bats them away, but he doesn't really. I mean, he probably bruises them, but he doesn't do any permanent damage to them. So, and just tries to get them to get medical attention to the wounded and takes off. So,
pretty strong here. Flips a car.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we think about the strength level of Ghost Rider necessarily, but flips a car upside down.
Yeah.
So pretty strong.
Yeah, and the visuals again. Texeira is doing a great job, and the new motorcycle compared to, if those of you don't know, the original Ghost Rider created a motorcycle out of his hand with flame at one point. At least I seem to remember that. And the new motorcycle just is very streamlined, very 90s, very very high tech looking,
with flaming wheels,
wheels.
So yeah, so still a little bit supernatural.
Definitely supernatural. So yeah, it's a good little chase with the police, and he of course manages to finally get away from them. Maybe a little bit of property damage in the middle of all that, but he gets away and turns back into Danny, and Danny freaks out and runs off to try to find his sister, leaving the bike somewhere here in the is it Wrigley Field? No, but he does leave it in a baseball field. So interesting choice.
You know, it almost plays a little bit like the Hulk transformation to some degree. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm overcome by this thing, it goes and does what it does, and then when it's over, I am returned to myself, and I'm sort of distraught by the whole thing. Right,
yeah, and at least right now, it's very obvious that they are completely separate personalities. I mean, there is nothing of Danny really in Ghost Rider and vice versa. He is just the vessel, so to speak, which is pretty cool. He's also well, we move into, before I get into that, we move into more villainy. So we get Death Watch again, who is upset that a case that he was trying to steal from Kingpin has been stolen by a street gang, and then Kingpin is told that his case has been stolen, so Kingpin's upset. So two villains building up, and of course the revelation that there's a mysterious group of canisters in the case, that the street gang just wanted it to be money or drugs. That's all they wanted. But no, they have, what did one guy call it, deodorant or something. So, so yeah, pretty cool. Probably the only part I'm kind of unclear on next is that he comes into the hospital covered in what I assume is Barb's blood, and I guess he faints. I'm not sure, but
it looks like that's what happened. The next day they say you gave us so.
Yeah, it gave me quite a scare. So yeah,
I guess he just wanders into the hospital and passes out after he leaves the motorcycle.
Well, I guess if you're possessed by a demonic super being,
kind of wears
you
you
might
out.
want to have the vapors for a bit. I don't know, so that's all right. And he's very distraught over Sis once again. So, and decides that, my gosh, if he's the Ghost Rider and he has access to all this power, well, surely he can just go get the cycle, and Ghost Rider will just heal his sister. So, it's logical, and and ends up running afoul once more of a street confrontation.
Which I guess he left the bike in the cemetery?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He left it somewhere. He left it in a field, so I guess Salem Field was a cemetery and not a baseball. Sorry, folks.
That's all right. I was wondering what it was because it kind of did look like a baseball stadium,
field from the
but
outside.
I think it's the same cemetery they were in earlier.
Okay. So yeah, so he just so he goes and gets the bike again to go heal his sis, and on the way he encounters Kingpin's thugs and Death Watch's thugs fighting with the street gang so that they can get the case back. And all of this innocent blood getting spilled because one of the kids gets shot activates the cycle once again. And Danny seems pretty reluctant to become Ghost Rider, and then he does, despite his own protests, and you get to see more Ghost Rider. Yet another great splash page when Ghost Rider returns once more to come and save the day. And he reveals his magical chain in the second fight, so more powers.
We've got basically thugs working for the Kingpin and like ninjas working for Death Watch, I guess.
Ninjas that use Uzis apparently. So
that's an interesting choice.
You know, it's the '90s. You know, you got like people with rocket launchers and swords dressed like ninjas. It's, you know, I'm surprised Daredevil didn't suddenly appear and be like, "Hey, ninjas, let's fight them." So.
Yeah, there's a guy with a rocket launcher.
Yep.
Just walking around with just got a rocket launcher in the trunk of my car.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, but once again, I guess they weren't around for the car flipping, so they think if they just wrap a chain around Ghost Rider, it'll stop him. And he uses the guy holding the chain as basically a human fly swatter for a good minute. And yeah, fun stuff. I had forgotten how much fun the first comic really was.
Mm-hmm.
It holds up pretty well, I'd say, for the 90s.
You get a lot happening. The art is still, if this art was out in the comic today, you'd still be fine with it.
Oh, yeah.
I think the main difference is a lot more plot.
A lot of plot.
And probably a lot more dialogue than what you would get in a modern comic, because it's just a lot more plot heavy.
Yeah. But I mean, in my mind, with any number one, that's what you should be doing anyway, because you want to try to grab people with as much
set it up, yeah,
set up a lot of things, because he does manage to, of course, save the gang and get rid of both of the criminals, and then takes the kid that's been shot to the hospital where Barb is, but Ghost Rider does not go visit Barb.
No. He walks in. I mean, it's a little weird to have the flaming... At this point, he needs help. Bring a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm a guy with a flaming skull. The doctors do seem a little surprised by it, at least.
Yeah. I like the one that's like, hey, you just can't come in here. It's like, would you really say that to a guy with a flaming skull?
Well, I guess you can. Yeah.
It's like, maybe we just help the wounded guy instead and hope that he doesn't get mad. I would think that a flaming skull would be fairly a creepy guy to try to talk to.
To encounter,
like,
sure.
Oh. So, yeah, and of course, Barb's still not doing well at the end of this issue, so we have that for the plot hook. Plus, we have a little plot hook in that Death Watch has killed someone from his gang that's a failure, and then Kingpin looks like he's destroyed a desk or something and is very upset that his canisters are not there. So we got like lots of lead-in to go into the
next issue. They both want these canisters. Innocent people are being caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
Innocent blood is apparently what motivates Ghost Rider to appear. And that takes you to the end of issue 1. Honestly, I think just going through it again, that still holds up as a good first issue. Like, if you read that as a first issue today, I think you'd still be like, well, this is it's an intriguing setup. It's a new hero.
Yeah, and I mean, I read it back in the day, and I remember really enjoying it, but it's been quite a while since I've perused it. And you're right, it really is a good first issue. The dialogue and points might be a little dated, but beyond that, I mean, that's normal for any comic book, I think, that's from a different period. So,
sure.
But yeah, and the visuals are, I mean, amazing. The art is just, like you said, any comic book art today that if you picked up an issue and this was in here, you would be like, wow, this is awesome.
And these guys are both still working, so I mean, their style is still similar.
Similar, yeah.
and they both still do really good work.
Yeah.
So I mean, it still looks great, and the story is compelling. It is kind of the classic Marvel trope, usually young man. Although lately they've managed to spread that out a little bit.
Yeah.
Falls into unusual situation for some reason, gets unusual powers that are maybe sometimes mysterious or not entirely explained at the beginning. And this kind of jumps you right into it. Like I said, it had elements of Spider-Man, elements of Hulk, maybe a few elements of Nova as far as...
Yeah.
But then also, the problem with maybe the Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider is he just has to be such an idiot for that origin to work.
Amen.
And so I think he was always fighting uphill in his book against but you're an idiot,
This wouldn't have happened to you if you weren't stupid. So,
there's a handful of good issues in that run, and obviously you got to give credit to the guys who created him because it looks great. It's a great look, and I think they did the best they could with it. And I think, especially given the 70s, the Evel Knievel type guy. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas in it, but just, this gives Danny a little more of a blank slate where in issue 1 you're not like, well, whatever, you kind of deserve whatever happens to you.
Well, you're kind of not a good person, I guess, because you made a deal. So why are we sympathetic with you?
Not that I guess deals with the devil aren't part of literature going back for a long time. So that's probably where they're pulling it from. I just always had a harder time with Johnny Blaze as a character than I did Danny Ketch, who feels a little more like a Rich Rider or a Peter Parker type character.
Definitely.
Although, again, this all does get more convoluted
as
you go. But as far as if you were thinking picking up this issue or picking up some of these trades that have come out, the Danny Ketch classics, honestly, I think that's a very solid first issue. I think it's a strong introduction to at least this version of the character. The supernatural elements of it aren't particularly touched on. It could be anything, really. I mean, he grabs the motorcycle cap, and there's no difference between that and, say, a Darkhawk who finds a medallion and becomes Darkhawk.
Yeah, yet another.
Sort of not much difference as far as how that's set up. It's just a matter of the supporting cast and the villains and the different things. And he's very much in the Marvel New York with the Kingpin.
Right.
Deathwatch, I think, being a new character with this issue, but very much in the mix of what the Marvel New York was at the time as well. Sort of the seamier side with the cemetery and this is a little probably grittier than your average Marvel book at that time. Yeah. Although for now it's probably relatively tame, but a little grittier than probably the average Marvel book at that time. What other thoughts did you have as we go through here?
Well, the other thing I was gonna, he is the spirit of vengeance, and I was kind of thinking, this Ghost Rider versus I think they had the Spectre out around this time too at DC, somewhere in that range. They kind of were both active, and I always feel like Ghost Rider for Spirits of Vengeance between the comic worlds is probably the more identifiable would be the best way. To say the Spectre is a great character, but I always think that Ghost Rider is the one that is more believable because he's more down to earth and he's more purely motivated by vengeance and justice. So,
and Spectre doesn't necessarily have that human element as much that would draw you to it.
No, it's usually you're usually dependent on the host and the supporting cast with that character to do anything. And I collected Spectre, so it's not that I don't like it. It's just between the two, I think that the Ghost Rider, especially this version of Ghost Rider, is probably the better one. I know that he goes on to have many adventures, including being a member of the temporary Fantastic Four, which was a fun little run.
Yeah.
And he was everywhere for quite a while. I do remember that because he was such a hit. They crossed him over into a lot of stuff.
This book ran through 98, but up until in the middle there, in that mid-90s, early to mid-90s, he was in that new Fantastic Four with Wolverine and
Spider-Man
and Spider-Man and Hulk. He met up with the Punisher in some issues of his own series coming up. He had a crossover with the X-Men.
Right.
So he was definitely somebody that they put a lot behind. They launched that entire line of Midnight Suns comics behind the success of Ghost Rider, kind of opening up that supernatural side. So with him being, not this Ghost Rider, but with Ghost Rider being on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and having a higher profile, I thought it would be a good time again to kind of look at the first version of the character I was really into. I really didn't follow the previous Ghost Rider. I've read some since, but this was the first one I really followed with any regularity. And I think these are pretty solid comics. If we have a chance, we may go ahead and look at future issues in future episodes. But we thought this would be a good time to maybe take a look at what works about this. 20 some odd years later, what worked about this launch. And I think if you pick that up today, it would still be a solid first issue.
Yeah, and if you've never read it, the Danny Ketch trades are definitely worth the read. And especially if you're liking Ghost Rider in S.H.I.E.L.D. and you want to see more of that mythos, because I know there's a Ghost Rider comic currently running. Mm-hmm. But I am hoping that the little preview moment they had in S.H.I.E.L.D. where a Ghost Rider shows up to create the second Ghost Rider, I'm hoping they bring him in, and it would be cool if it was Danny instead of Johnny, but I don't know. I
think just based on what I've watched of S.H.I.E.L.D. that it'll probably be Johnny, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be Danny out there somewhere.
Right.
They may have just kind of streamlined some of the origins in there. So, okay, cool. Well, I think that kind of gave you a taste of what this Ghost Rider was all about. Really great artwork. Is probably a big part of the success, but this very good story as well. Any final thoughts on this one, Chris?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what you said. I think this pretty much launched Texeira as a phenomenon.
Yeah, Texeira and Saltares both
just boom. So he was everywhere after that too, and in high demand. So it's a great opening. Definitely check it out if you haven't.
All right, cool. Well, I'd like to thank Chris for being on the show with us today. You can catch us each week releasing new episodes via News OK. You can tweet at us at Danger Infinite. Find us on Facebook at Infinite Danger Room, or shoot us an email at infinitedangerroom@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to we'd love to read some of your feedback on the air as well. So feel free to shoot us a message any of those places. And feel free to rate and review us on iTunes as well. You can also find the episodes on SoundCloud. So check us out next week. We'll have more comic, film, other type of entertainment-related news in the comics world. So once again, thanks for listening.